Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back. Today, we're going to be talking about enmeshment. Now, this is a whole new elephant in the room. We've been talking about stalking. We've been talking about abnormal personalities and family members and family dynamics and, pathology within a family. And we just got done talking about emotional incest. And so today we're going to tackle something just a little bit different. It's enmeshment. It's something that creates the emotional incest sometimes. It's something that creates the uneasy feeling that you get when you're around an odd family member, or it creates the triangulation that you sometimes find within your family. So we're going to tackle that topic in today's video. Let me go ahead and start because we don't want to waste any more time. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribed and participating, and for those who are new, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing and our validating community. And in case you don't know who I am, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist, but I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize within my practice in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults. Let's jump in. So let's tackle this, okay, guys? So, enmeshment is basically something that describes a meshing together of characteristics, of mentalities, of emotions, of personalities, of character traits, right? It's something that kind of, gets in the way of your individuality. It's a form of codependency. It's not quite a codependency. It's a form of a codependency, okay? The way that I want you to think about this is, I'm enmeshed with my cousin because every time I'm suicidal, they are also suicidal. And sometimes we can't figure out whose motions are whose. And my mother tends to treat my cousin as if that is her daughter too. Now that's an example of enmeshment, okay? And out of enmeshment can grow emotional incest. Also, something that can be grown out of enmeshment is the parentified child. That there are parents who are sometimes so enmeshed with certain children in the family that the other children get pushed to the side, and they are pushed to the front sometimes as the parent, as the caregiver, as the money maker, as the educated, sophisticated one that fights for the family and gets in front of the family and defends them all the time. Like, there are multiple roles that family members play. And when you're talking about an enmeshed family, family members take on the roles pretty well. And sometimes to the outside world, that enmeshed family can really look like a family that knows how to operate. And they also know how to play each role perfectly. But underneath the surface, underneath what may look like a prim and proper, well put together family, is a family that is suffering, and sometimes a family that is suffering with, emotional incest, divorce and separation, sexual abuse, physical and emotional abuse, domestic violence, rape, trauma. The list goes on, and sometimes, severe mental illnesses that are not treated. So, enmeshment can really be an interesting cloak for a family, because again, it can look like that family's very tight knit. It can look like they are very well put together, and it could also look like they know how to play their roles like a perfect family. But the reality, once you get inside the family, is sometimes that the family is very, very, very dysfunctional. They've just learned how to cloak it with socially astute and socially acceptable behaviors. And so that's the scary part of it. And I've worked with families who are like this, and when you delve underneath the surface, it's like you're peeling off layers. Here's one layer of emotional incest, here's another layer of physical incest, here's another layer of infidelity and of divorce and of abuse and of trauma and intergenerational trauma, and it just keeps going. So I want to give you guys some signs that you may have been experiencing enmeshment within your family. Again, enmeshment is pretty much a blurring of the lines. It's a codependency, a form of codependency, but it refers more so to a family unit. and how an individual within that family unit has become so cemented with another family member that it's really difficult for that other family member to breathe. It's like they're being submerged under that other family member. They're too entwined, you know? So a few signs that you may have dealt with this within your family, or maybe you're dealing with it now, God forbid. The number one thing that I have seen in research supports is, you're going to see the parentified child, the parentified wife, the parentified husband within these particular families. Now, what I mean by this is the parentified child or the parentified wife or husband is basically the idea that the child takes on the role of the mother in the family, takes on the role of the husband's wife or the wife's husband. There's no healthy boundary where a child who is responsible and mature, and maybe the eldest child, can really be a really good sibling and a role model. That doesn't exist. It has far exceeded that. It is now an inappropriate emotional relationship between that child and that parent, and it gets spread on to other family members within that unit. So the siblings, for example. And a lot of times in these particular situations, the parent is well aware that the boundary has been crossed. Most of the time. The problem is that they don't always want to fix that. They like the fact that they can pretend that the father can come home and dinner's on the table for him and the dog is walked and the children are put in bed. The sad part is that this is not a wife. This is the daughter, Or a mother may like the fact that her male children can rely on the older brother who may be 30 years older than his other siblings. Sometimes that has happened as well. Especially in families where there's foster kids and adoption, sometimes there's a 30-year-old, and then you look at the same family, unit, and the mother also has an adopted 5-year-old, The 30-year-old child is old enough to be the adopted 5-year-old's father, and sometimes the roles there can be really blurred and really weird. Step families also, or step children and step parents also go through this. Families with step parents in it's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes situations where there's a half sibling and there's an older half sibling and younger biological children within a family. So however that family is structured, however it runs, the bones underneath tend to be dysfunctional. And if there's enmeshment, there's definitely a parentified child somewhere. Okay, so that's number one. The second is inappropriate attraction. And I hate to bring this up because it's so yucky. It's so it just irks me. I'll put it that way, even as a professional with experience and even as a therapist who can really have a poker face sometimes, I just can't wrap my mind around how a parent, a step parent, a biological parent, whatever, a parent who's been, the adoptive parent or the foster parent, whatever, I don't know how they can have an attraction to someone they call their child. But in enmeshed families, that is a possibility. And that's sick, Very, very sick, okay? In these particular families, there's physical incest, there's emotional incest, there's sexual abuse, there's rape, there is sometimes intermarriage in cultures like the Indian culture. Sometimes, depending on, where the family lives, sometimes the father within that enmeshed family is married to multiple wives, okay, polygamy. So there's a lot that could be incorporated in this section, and it would take up the whole video if I stuck on this, so we're going to move on. But inappropriate attractions within that family unit that's enmeshed is really sick, but it does happen. The next thing you're likely to see is grooming. Grooming is basically a psychological concept that refers to an adult who's kind of trying to suck up to an individual that they are hoping that they can molest or rape or engage in some sexual interaction with. Grooming is basically like, just to kind of help you visualize this, it's like, petting someone really nicely before you kick them, and grooming is really what perverts, for lack of a clinical word, do. Adults who rape, they groom their victims. These are individuals who have a manipulative mentality: sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists, manipulators. So grooming is something that you want to watch for if you have a family member that doesn't understand their boundaries, or you have a family member who has engaged in sexually maladaptive behaviors. I talk about that right up here in this video as well if you want to go check that out, okay? And, the last thing that I think I want to throw in here as well as kind of like a red flag of enmeshment is, a family where you feel like your feelings are constantly being manipulated. Now, if your feelings are being constantly manipulated and, you feel like nobody has any clarity, no one has any idea of what's going on because this person manipulates your emotions, that person does it, then you're likely in a family where there's enmeshment. Nobody understands their place. Nobody has a boundary. Everybody's emotions are just like up in the air. Everybody's angry and mad and confused and frustrated and uncertain. And so sometimes if you feel like your emotions are constantly being manipulated within your family, that's because of enmeshment. There's no clear lines, there's no boundaries, there's nothing. So, these are a few signs that your family is enmeshed. We're going to continue to talk about these things, guys. I find that a lot of you can relate to them. So we're going to push forward. And then I'm also going to talk about the things that I posted in the comment section, in the community section, and some of the posts that I also posted in the community section. So go ahead and check that out. Some of the polls as well where you guys have voted. I'm going to be doing a live video for May, and so you're going to be able to talk to me in real time, so stick around for that. All right, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around with us, and that bell button so you know every time I post a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.